Saga is on location at Anime Midwest in Chicago, Illinois. And today we're joined by Greg Ayres.
Hey!
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Always a
having
pleasure
great
to see
time.
you.
I love Chicago, and I don't get back here very often. I've had a really awesome weekend. One of my best friends' band played. I told the story in my last panel that I actually dodged out of the con for a few minutes and went with my friend's grandma to a skate park to see a punk rock band. So it was really awesome. So I've had a lot of fun this weekend.
That's probably really cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And it's one of my best friends. It's cool to see him performing.
Good. What was it like working on Angel Beats?
Man, that's the weirdest story. We recorded Angel Beats. This was before Sentai started doing their super fast recording. But we recorded Angel Beats very disjointedly. And so I recorded part of the show, and then I didn't record for a long time, and then I came back and recorded the end of the show. And because of that, I don't think I was as emotionally connected to it as I think I would have been had I been doing the whole thing. But that made watching it murderous on me because I had no idea what was about to happen. And the end of the show was just horrible. One of my friends, one of the nerdcore rappers that's here this weekend, Doc Awkward, Doc was like, well, you know, Greg does anime, I should look at some of his stuff. And he looked up, he just went to Netflix and typed in Greg Ayres, and Angel Beats was the first thing that came up, having no idea this was going to be sad. And the next day on my Facebook, it said, all right, mister, the next time you make me cry while I'm watching cartoons, we will have words. So I always tease Doc about getting upset watching Angel Beats, but it's a sad show. It's one of the few shows that I have at all times on my iPad. I could watch it at any time. I have all 12 episodes in the OVA. I've got everything on my iPad, so if I just want to take a look again, I can watch it. It's a great show.
It is a really good show.
Great show. And I play a little meanie toot of a character, so I like it. It's fun. I don't always play that character, so.
Good. What was it like working on Air Gear, one of my personal favorites?
So there's some actors that always want the lead. And I don't always think the lead is the funniest character or the most interesting. That is one of the funniest characters I've ever voiced. He is this large, very strange lip, and there's a name. The Japanese have a name for the character that has the funny lips like Onigiri has. He's the minute you see that on a character, you know they're one of the comedic roles. But just the dynamic of him skating on his head on that one rollerblade, and that the fact that his girlfriend leaves him because he's not fat enough, and she leaves him for a guy named Fatty Bucha, and he's just such a funny character that you kind of can't help but love him. And I had a blast working on that show. Our director, the second director we had, John Swayze, to this day laughs anytime I do the woo woo thing. He just thinks it's so funny because you can imagine him upside down with that little skate on his head.
We know John. I can definitely believe John does that.
Yeah.
What was it like working on Carnival?
Carnival is awesome. I just finished it, and I normally play the spazzy whiny kid. And there's one exception to that rule is if you can put me in cahoots with Shantique, who was my counterpart in Big Wind Up. And he was I don't know. And I was like, hey, kid, calm down. Well, that's the same dynamic we have in Carnival. So it's nice to play the cool, calm, collected guy because I would say if there's ever been a character that is a lot like me, it's Gareki. I feel a lot of connection with that character. I really love the character. And it was neat because I had just seen a bunch of fantastic Carnival cosplay in the UK, and I was like, "Wow, what are you dressed as?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm Yuki from this show, Carnival," and she's like, "And I'm so and so," and I was like, "Oh, your costumes are beautiful." And I come home, and that's one of the first things I do is audition for Carnival, and I was like, "I just saw all these costumes," so it's really cool to find out what that show was about and get to do it. And it's really neat. The funniest, here's a blooper that most people don't know about. When they made the announcement, when they released the trailer, it said, starring the voices of Vic Mignogna and Michael Tatum. The funny thing about that is, Vic is, without giving anything away, regardless of the size of that character or the importance of that character, you almost never hear Vic speak ever in the show. The person they thought was Michael Tatum is actually Ian Sinclair doing his impersonation of Michael Tatum.
I didn't know that.
So
I've heard the impersonation.
Yes.
No.
So when our director Christopher Bevins cast the role, he goes, "Well, why give Tatum the Tatum role and Ian the Ian role? Let's give Ian the Tatum role and Tatum the Ian role." and he told them to do their best impersonations of each other. And evidently, Ian's impersonation of Tatum is so good that they put him on the trailer as Michael Tatum. So I love it. Since it came out April 1st, I always tell everybody that's the April Fool's trailer. So, but yeah, they fooled even the trailer department.
That's great. What was it like working on Torico? Another one of my favorites.
One of my favorite comments I've ever gotten on social media. So the first time I saw the idea of Torico is weird to me anyway. It's like a Dragon Ball Z style show about food.
Yeah, it's Dragon Ball Z meets food.
Yeah, food. Like, but they're like, oh, you're gonna play this great, horribly evil villain, and everybody knows I like to play villains, so I was like, ah, yeah. And they bring me in, and there's this person that looks like Nicki Minaj on the screen, and I was like, who is that? And they're like, that's your character, Tommy Ron. I was like, that's a girl. And they're like, no, it's not. It's a really evil guy. So after we could finally talk about the show, I said, man, it's not every day I get to go in the studio and play a male character that looks like Nicki Minaj that vomits bugs. And somebody on Twitter goes, so basically you're playing Nicki Minaj. And I fell out. But I loved it. I love the idea of this guy that's like harvesting like larvae and bugs that can be ejected as weapons later. He's like, such a great pretext for a character, and it was great making all the horrible vomit noises. I apparently make pukey noises better than a lot of people. I've made two directors almost sick making that sound. So
It was really great in the show. I will say that.
It's really fun. It's a great character.
What was it like working on Sayuki?
That's always going to be like one of my baby projects because I'm a big fan of the original manga artist or mangaka Kaizo Minakura, and I was a fan of the show. This is before I knew anything about illegal. I had a bad bootleg DVD that I bought of it, and I just loved the show. And then we had the rights taken away from us, or not the rights taken. There was another season, and it went to California, and it was recast. It was really hard, but the cool thing is. So Genion is no more, and a lot of those studios and those actors have kind of settled into the wind or whatever. And then Gaiden was produced, and it went to Sentai. So it was the entire original cast, which is cool because that's the prequel to the first season of Sayuki. But I'm warning you now, it's a 3-tissue affair. You will cry your eyes out watching the prequels. So, but I love it. It's a character. It was my first big role. It's a first show that I got to work on that I was a fan of. So, Sayuki will always be a pretty big deal to me. The weirdest thing is, of the 4 Sanzo party, and this is the strangest piece of trivia, there's never been one time in history that all 4 of us have been in the same place at the same time. We've never, ever been even in the same building at the same time, which is great. Like, that's because it doesn't sound like it when we're arguing in the Jeep. It sounds like we're all sitting there next to each other. So it's great. I think that's a tribute to our director.
What's it like working on Welcome to the NHK? Another one of my favorites.
Playing a fanboy? Oh, that's real hard for me. The funniest thing is I have a friend who, his room looks just like Yamazaki's room. And I thought it was so funny when I started recording, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm working on a show. This guy's room looks just like yours. And he goes, if you say welcome to the NHK, I'm going to hit you. And I was like, you're only mad because, it's true, bro. Like, so I loved it. I love playing otaku characters because I think there's a really disrespectful way that most people would choose to do it. And since I am a big fanboy, like, I bring a lot of love to that kind of character. Like, I don't think it's weird that somebody's a huge fan of something, and so I just make that character really excited about everything that they're into. So
no, the character was very lovable.
Very
lovable.
I mean, and he's a pretty weird guy. He's a pretty mean, like, guy. But I tried to make that believable, and I don't think there's like. There've been several shows where people make fun of anime fans. Like, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. Like, I'm a proud nerd. Like, nerd flag, big nerd flag. But I loved playing that. I love that I don't think I even auditioned for that character. I think they just cast me. There are 2 characters that happened with, Yamazaki and NHK. And I don't know how to feel about this. And the other is Yuki and the Wallflower, which is a little weird because that's the character that always gets end up dressing like, they dress him up like a girl all the time. But yeah, those are the 2 that I guess I was perfect for. So,
is there anything coming out that you can talk about right now, or might have recently come out that you want to plug?
Well, there's a lot. Okay, so I've done, like I said, it's Sentai Filmworks in Houston. We're cranking out anime like at the speed of sound.
Chris Ayres said about 6 months.
Yeah, we're just so much, and our turnaround is so fast on shows. I'll finish recording, and it will be out in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's just that crazy fast. Some of my some of my favorite shows that I've done recently with Sentai. There's a really cute romantic comedy called Say I Love You, and I play the horn dog in it, and it's funny because the horn dog is usually just the comic relief. This is one time where the horn dog gets a girlfriend, and then they're just happy the rest of the show. It's very cute. But I play Monica's boyfriend so much, she jokingly always calls me, "Hey, anime boyfriend." So speaking of Monica, we did a show called Another, which I absolutely love. It's like a thriller, haunting, like Final Destination-y type anime. Monica and I seem to end up in all the most bloody, violent anime. And I guess if there's any hint that I can give you, and by the time this sees the light of day, this announcement will probably already be made, but my next big show for Funimation, I am a villain. I am a villain, bad little dude. So, yeah, Monica and I seem to play all these violent shows. I also just did a show called From the New World, which I think is a fantastic story. I played one of the leads in that. A show called Hawkenden, Eight Dogs of the East. So yeah, there's a lot of new stuff. And there's a few more surprises from Sentai that I've just started working on that I can't talk about. But yeah, there's a lot coming out in the next few months. I feel really lucky that I continually work on cool stuff. So.
And we always ask you this: Facebook, Twitter, other social medias.
All of them. My real Facebook is full because Mark Zuckerberg thinks that nobody can have more than 5,000 friends. So I have a Facebook page, Greg Ayres Voice and Music, and I run it. I'm not super fan-y because I spend most of my time with fans at conventions.
Yeah.
So I don't like get on my Twitter and go, if the first person that can name my favorite role, I'll give you a cookie. Like, I don't do all that. But like, if somebody writes to me on my Facebook page, I will read it. I'm the only person that has access to it. I don't have an assistant that does that, which is why some things take me a long time. My Twitter is always funny. I love Twitter because I love the idea that if somebody just wants to keep up with what I'm doing, we don't have to be friends on Facebook. Like, they can just follow, and that's what I do to all the musicians. You know, Skrillex is not my friend, but I know what he's up to because of his Twitter account. So I love that. But yeah, so I'm on all the social media. Like, it's even Tumblr. But my Tumblr is, I warn people, if you stumble across my Tumblr, you get what you ask for because it's my personal. It's named after my favorite alcoholic drink. That should give it a. That should tell you right there what's on my Tumblr. Music videos, goofy quotes, funny pictures. That's what Tumblr's really for. But although I heard it's for drama, but maybe not. But yeah, all the social media, all of the internets. So.
Well, Greg, it's always a pleasure.
Awesome, dude. Always great seeing you guys.
Always a pleasure.
Of course, I would reach for the hand that's holding the mic.
That's fine.
So.
We're the All Guys on Location. I'm Mike. He's Greg.
Definitely.
And we'll see you next time.
Awesome.